vote, gal. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam, gal. Follow the alliance down the road, down the road. Follow the white line.
Good evening, and welcome to this edition of the National Alliance television program. I am your hostess, Silveria Jacobs, Deputy Leader of the National Alliance.
Follow the white line down the road, and to the polls, gal. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go vote, gal. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam, gal.
Tonight on our program, we have as our guest the Member of Parliament, Honorable Mr. George Pantophlet. Welcome, MP George.
Thank you, Ms. Silveria Jacobs. I'm Deputy Leader of National Alliance.
Thank you for coming. I'm really happy to have you here because, as you know, our program is geared towards information and giving information to the voters. And you know, we have many, many new voters. So first, I'd like to let you introduce yourself and say how you got your start in politics.
Well, thank you, first of all, and thank you for inviting me on this very special program. Yes, it was about something like 12 years ago. As a matter of fact, in 2002, I was approached by our leader, Mr. William Marlin, who asked me to postulate myself as a candidate on the list of the National Alliance. I told him, well, I have to take my time and pray about it because I believe that politics is not an easy issue. And if you want to get involved, you must know exactly what you're doing. So after some time, I did some serious praying indeed. And it was sometime around December the 31st, around 10:30, that I was at home. The wife and children went to look at the fireworks, but I decided to stay home because it was still on my mind. And around 10:30 on December the 31st, 2002, I heard just two things in my mind. Family and politics. In other words, first consult your family, see if you have their support, and then you can continue. Because one thing I have to tell those candidates who are coming into the fold right now, it is important that you ensure that your family is behind you. If you can't get your family support, then my advice to you is don't get involved in politics. So based on that, I decided to continue or to go ahead. And then it was in 2003 when I took part in my first elections. And the people found me at number 11, where I was placed. And of course, I became the fourth highest vote getter in 2003 on the list of the National Alliance.
Wow, so you had your maiden voyage was actually a very successful one.
Yes, indeed it was.
So you served St. Martin as an Island Council member back in those days. Can you give a little rundown as to exactly what post you have held from 2003 to now?
Wow. Well, of course, my first time 2003 as a member of the Island Council. Then I became also chairman of the Island Council, Central Committee of the Island Council at the time. I also went down to Curacao, was State Secretary of Health for about a year, and also Member of Parliament of the Netherlands Antilles. So those positions has taught me that it is good that you can get experience, but also I saw the different sides of the politics being in government, also on the side of opposition.
Okay. All right. So in 2010, you also ran with the National Alliance, and you are one of the first batch of parliamentarians in our new country status that transferred over, because initially it was for the Island Council, and then as of 10-10-10, all of the elected council members became members of parliament.
That's correct.
Correct. So take us back to 2010 and give us a synopsis of your role as a member of parliament, because many believe that it is exactly the same as being an island councilman. So I would like you to be that educator now for St. Martin in terms of what is your role as a member of parliament?
You see, I'm being questioned by a teacher, so I have to answer correctly. Yes, I think what has happened, people still up to today don't understand the difference between Island Council and Commissioner, and also Parliament, being a member of Parliament, and also a minister. They still call me Commissioner at times, and some Island Council member even today. The issue is, as you said correctly, when we became country, 10-10-10, it was transferred from Island Council to Parliament. And of course, Parliament means you have the Parliament, the legislators, and also the ministers. And my role has been, is at the moment, one of a legislator. Now, there again, we have a confusion because people ask me as a member of Parliament, what's your portfolio? I said, members of Parliament don't have a portfolio. We are the controllers, supervisors. The ministers are the ones who have the executive, who are the executive branch of Parliament, and they carry out the work. What I have found as a member of Parliament, it is very challenging because sometimes people ask you what it is, what are you doing for us? Now, we are the ones who have to manage, supervise, ensure that the ministers carry out their task according to what the law has specified. But very often we find ourselves where it's at presently is a coalition, you'll call it, and when you want to pass certain legislation, unfortunately you don't get the impression that they look at it as an overall interest of St. Martin, but too often you have the issue where if you come with a proposal as a, in this case, I don't like the word opposition, but I use it anyhow. Although it's in the interest of St. Martin, you still find that there are those who will, because of politics, will reject the proposal, and it's unfortunate. We had one where we talk about the issue of GEBE, to reduce, I think, the tariffs by some 20 or 30%. I can't remember exactly how much. And it came to the floor. We had all 15 signatures, all members signed, including the President of Parliament signed. And when it came time to vote, then I think something went wrong. They got a phone call somewhere, and those persons that signed did not vote. So definitely it was not passed. And I find that is unfortunate because it was in the interest of the people of St. Martin.
I think that needs to be explained. In case you just joined us, this is a National Alliance television program with our guest, the Honorable Member of Parliament, George Pantophlet. Now, George, you were just explaining something, and I think it needs to be clarified. So 15 members signed in because we do see the parliamentary debates on television, but many still don't understand this idea of signing in to speak and signing in to vote, etc. You said when you put in your proposal, this was a proposal from you, from the National Alliance,
that's correct. Yeah.
To lower the GB tariffs,
exactly,
which would
correct.
definitely impact the people of St. Martin in a positive way, because we've been feeling that pinch. You said all 15 members signed in. However, when it was time to vote, they abstained from voting. They did not vote, all of the members of Parliament.
Let me put it this way. The 15 members signed a motion. It came from us. A motion was submitted. And when it came time to vote, because even though you sign on the motion,
agreement of the motion?
Right, you have to vote on the motion.
Okay.
And what they did, not abstain, they just voted against. And it might seem funny, but during the discussion.
So how many was that?
I think at the time it was, I believe, 6 of us, because we had at the time, I believe, Dr. Lloyd was with us. And I believe also Member of Parliament, I think Independent from Richmond supported it also. So I think it was about the others 8 or 9% that voted against it, which was something ironic because they signed the motion. But of course we have a discussion where it was said they got a phone call from the UP leader and he was probably against it, and therefore they followed his lead and did not vote along, but voted against the motion.
I think it's very important for the public of St. Martin to be aware of representatives, your representatives, sitting in Parliament and voting against a motion that would actually assist the local man, the small man especially, in being able to meet his bills at the end of the month. So thank you for clarifying that. In the 4 years you've been here as a Member of Parliament, what is the procedure? I would like that explained. The procedure for putting forward a motion.
Basically, it's not a difficult one. What you do, anybody can do it, of course, as a Member of Parliament. You look at certain points or issues that you want to address. You get your document, you make the notes and so on, explain exactly what it is you want to see change, and then you write it down. It has to be documented, simple. And then you present it in Parliament. You come, of course, as a person that presented the motion, you speak to the motion. That's one thing we have learned over the years. I thought that, well, you submitted this, okay, no. Whoever's presenting the motion has to speak to the motion itself. But as I said before, it's a simple document. It doesn't need any, sometimes depending on the legal aspects could be involved, but normally a motion is a simple, straightforward document explaining this is how it is right now, this is what we want to see done, and this is how we go about voting for it. And that's it.
Okay. Have many motions?
Can I add something?
Sure.
What I find is unfortunate, and I said it one time during a parliamentary meeting, motions, unfortunately, because of the political setup, sometimes are almost considered a waste of time. There are motions we have passed over the years, but they still remain motion because why? We need the government, the ministers, to sit down and ensure that these are executed, which does not happen because why? It comes from opposition, then the government does not carry it out, and then because of the support of the majority in Parliament, it remains a dormant motion that doesn't go anywhere, which again is unfortunate.
I could actually recall MP Pantophlet that motions were passed during my tenure as minister, which were not possible within the budget. For instance, there was one I could remember, MP Franz Richardson or MP Laville had proposed pertaining to education in free education
Yes,
for
right.
all children. Now, I think it sounds really good. It sounds really good. But even prior to the motion coming to Parliament, we had the discussions between the ministers and the members of Parliament as to how government already supports education, and that education was already, in essence, free. School boards have the option to charge a contribution fee. They may not call it a school fee. So we spent many weeks clarifying that, and that there was a, how you say, the Labor Department, the Labor and Social Department is there to take the names of those who cannot afford the contribution that a school requires that you make on behalf of your child, that you can get the assistance once you can prove that your salary falls within a particular bracket. So there were already ways to assist those that are in need. And this motion would give free education to even persons like myself and you who could afford whatever contribution the school required, maybe because they felt the subsidy of government was only basic and not meeting the extra needs, especially for the books and the innovations that continue to happen on a yearly basis. So I found it as a minister then very difficult to execute that motion. So was that GB motion, would that GB motion have hampered government in any way?
Definitely not. Look, the issue is, and it was interesting, we're going to have a meeting next week, Wednesday, I believe, with the Minister of Finance. And he gave us a half-year report where he presented certain documentation and information. And in it you saw where, and I'm glad you brought up that subject because I saw where exactly right now, a question I had posed when we had the last budget meeting, there was a surplus of some 7.5 million guineas that GB had for government. And now he's proposing now that GB pays that money to government. So I'm saying the finances are there, but sometimes it takes the will, political will, in order to carry these out.
Okay. In case you've just joined us, we've been speaking to MP George Pantophlet on procedures in Parliament, on motions, etc. Now I'd like to go over to MP George Pantophlet, go over to actual legislation. There's been a lot of cry in the public now about Parliament and what is actually happening, and the salaries of the parliamentarians compared to the executed works. So can you clarify in terms of legislation, what is the process now? If you find that there's a piece of legislation that has to change, what is the process as a parliamentarian to get that changed?
Well, that's a nice question. One of the things I've learned is, as a legislator, because that's what we are, members of Parliament, of course, and some of us don't even know the laws and so on, but it's interesting. When I say laws, we are not, in my case, I'm not a lawyer, but of course we expect to have some knowledge about how the process works. And any legislation you want to present, first of all, it has to go to the advisory council. And there's a law that says they have about 4 months, whatever, in order before they give you an answer on that legislation. It comes back to you. And if there are any changes, adjustments they propose, you do so and submit it back to them. Once that is done, then it comes to the Senate committee meeting, or maybe a committee meeting for advice and so on, discussion, goes back to the Senate committee, and then if it's handled and completed, then it goes to the plenary session. We have submitted a proposal, a legislation, in order to deal with a short-term contract. Now we started that since 2011. We're in 2014, May this month. Last month made it 3 years. And what has happened, the Social Economic Council had to see it. The Labor Department wanted to see it. They had meetings with the private sector in order to find exactly what the consequences will be. And right now, it has come to us. We made some adjustments, submitted back again, and it's right now sitting at the Advisory Council, if not mistaken, in order for them to give a final decision. And the issue is this: based on the law, it has to go through these processes. There's some legislation that takes years before they're passed.
Wow.
And it's unfortunate because it has to do with the cooperation of the entire organ of not only Parliament, but also Advisory Council.
I completely get that, but I don't think the people of St. Martin gets that. It is a very long process. I understand it has to go to several of the advisory councils, etc. But is there a way, when you said goes to the plenary session, that is a session of Parliament where different factions, etc.,
Yes.
would get to speak
Yes.
to the law?
You know what's interesting? Senate committee meetings, all members of Parliament attend. And in Dutch it's called Centrale Commissie Vergaderingen, but it's public. And then we come to the plenary sessions, also openbare vergadering. The only difference is, in the Central Committee, there's no speaker's time. You can speak for hours as long as you want. The President of Parliament has given us a time frame. In other words, round 1, round 2. Actually, there's no first round and second round in the subcommittee meetings, but she has instituted that. We have let it continue. But in the plenary session, which is openbare vergadering, I don't see the difference between the two. It's when you have to speak according to the time limit you are given. 20 minutes first round, 10 minutes second round, or 30 minutes first round, 20 minutes second round. The whole issue is, when it comes to legislation, you need the majority, at least 8 out of the 15, to get it passed. And if you don't get a support from the Central Committee meeting, it will not reach the plenary session.
Follow the white line down the road, to the polls, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go vote, girl. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, down the road.
And we're back with MP George Pantophlet. MP, is there any issue that is right now touching on your heart that you think deserves Parliament's attention?
Of course. As you have heard, lately there's a lot of complaints with regards to the issue of renewing Dutch passports, where people have been asked to come with their birth certificate. When the matter was brought to my attention previously, I said, wait a minute, let me look into it, and found that indeed it was so. I wrote an article, of course, and some letters to the Prime Minister and said, please explain to us why is it that persons who have been given their passports 5, 10, 15, some 25 years ago are being asked today to submit their birth certificate, because having experience in naturalization, I know for a fact that once you request a Dutch nationality, your birth paper goes to the Netherlands or to Holland. They verify that it's authentic and they send it back. So you are saying now in St. Martin that the document that Holland say was okay to get a Dutch passport is not good any longer. To find out that they say they're cleaning up the civil registrar. But I see it, first of all, and this is politics. And we know for a fact that in order for you to get elected, you need votes. The smallest party right now is the Democratic Party. And what I see is happening, the less people vote, the better chance they have in order to be involved or to get a seat into Parliament. It is unfortunate because when I asked the Prime Minister, I said, why are you targeting U.S. Persons who are living in the U.S. who are studying, students also? I was told that is not the case, that what they're doing is trying to claim the register. To find out that the emails were sent to those in the U.S. telling plain, if you're not living in St. Martin, you'll be written out. And I asked, written out to where? And she said, written out to nowhere. And that was a response that we got in Parliament. It's on the file, it's on the records, and it proved that what she said. To make it even worse, she stated that those who don't respond within 6 months' time, their pass will be revoked, or they'll be written out of the census office. And then I understood, now I hear her lately stating that if this happens, it's a matter of human rights violation. I'm asking, you said in a meeting that once 6 months has passed, this is it. Now you're saying now it will be a violation of human rights? I submitted some questions to her with regards to how many persons were written out, or possibly revoked, countries, names, and nationality. I said, okay, forget about the names, but what countries? To date, 3 weeks has elapsed, no response. Again, it proves again when you are part of government and you have the support of the majority, then the members of Parliament who have the authority to question you don't get the answers. But people should be very vigilant, because who are being targeted are those persons who they see when they support the National Alliance.
I must say that that was brought to my attention as well. I'd heard it, the debate, I've seen your article in the paper, I've heard the Honorable Prime Minister discuss it in the plenary sessions. But recently, a couple of my supporters did tell me that they have been notified via letter in April that they had 6 months to produce an original birth certificate with apostille stamp. And if they didn't do that, and as a matter of fact, as of now, they are not in the system already. So not after 6 months, right away, they are not in the system. So in this young lady's case, she already voted in 2010. She is went to school her entire life here. She was only born in the United States. She's been here from 0 to now 26 or 27, whatever it is. And she's being told that she should also, if she has an American passport in her possession, she must bring it in. So you have to produce a birth certificate. You have to bring back in any other passport that you may have. And you can't get a new one in the meantime. So if it expires in the meantime, how is she supposed to travel to the United States to get it? So I think you're putting people in a lot of expense, especially if people went through the process, have been registered, went to school their entire life here, had a study financing from the St. Martin government, came back and is a working, productive citizen of St. Martin. To tell them at this point that your status is unclear and we do not know who you are in our system, I think it's highly ludicrous, and I hope that as parliamentarians, our representatives especially, that we will see more of it in Parliament, on the floor of Parliament.
Well, definitely. As a matter of fact, I was called by a 86-year-old lady who was born in Dominican Republic, but lived in St. Martin before we were born, and she was told she had to bring her birth certificate and so on, and she got the same letter of the 6 months issue. She said she sent it back to them, do with it whatever they feel like. Later on, they call her back, tell her that she's okay, she don't have to check anything anymore. So I don't know what happened with it, they found the documents finally, but again, it is a stressful situation. I still feel it is political because 2010, that's 4 years ago. Why now, at this short period of time before elections, this is taking place? But people of St. Martin should not be discouraged. We'll do what we have as Parliament to ensure that things work out in the proper manner.
We are very happy to hear that because we still have not heard the numbers, and I'm looking forward in the coming weeks to hear the number of persons whose status is up in the air, especially if it was people that consider themselves from here, whose children have since been born here, and now their status is also questionable. So I'm really, I think the people of St. Martin, especially these who are going through this stress right now, and have no idea as to, will I be able to vote in the coming elections? I have a say, I'm going to continue to live here. Are you then telling me get out of your country? We really look forward to the National Alliance getting the answers for these people. Definitely. Because not whether they are National Alliance supporters or others, they are citizens of St. Martin who deserve the right to have a status and to be able to make a difference for their future.
Follow the white line down the road to the polls, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go forward, girl. Follow the white line down the road.
We are here speaking with George Pantophlet, Member of Parliament for the National Alliance for the past 4 years, who is postulating himself, I'm sure, for the upcoming elections to get another 4 years. MP, what would you like to say? We are, winding down, as we should say, and I would like to give you this opportunity now to speak to your supporters, speak to the supporters of the NA, speak to the new voters, to tell them why the National Alliance, and particularly George Pantophlet, deserves another 4 years. And
I'm glad you said another 4 years. I'm looking at the 4 years as National Alliance government, not with any coalition. Why do I say this? The National Alliance, if people look at our history, we have in our constitution the word social democracy. Social democracy. In other words, we measure consolidate before we take our action. And anything Alliance does has to do with the people of St. Martin, with social aspects. If you look at the other parties, they go for projects, fine, but who do they benefit? So our National Alliance has to be given at least 4 years. Give us a 4-year term, and then you can judge us based on that. We look at our leader performance. Somebody said, compare William Marlin, Sarah Scott Williams, and Theo Heiliger, and look and see exactly what took place. You'll see where our leader focuses on education, health, everything that affects the social part of people. That's where we go for. So I'm saying to those there are some who say they don't want to vote. I say, please, don't allow yourself to do that. If you want to see change, you must vote. To those new voters, there's only one way to go. National Alliance, all the way.
Thank you so much. I know that we have brought you some much needed information, especially on the procedures in Parliament, etc., from our Honorable George Pantophlet, who has served us in Parliament for 4 years. You do know that we have been part of a coalition government. We have been first out of government, even though the largest party, the ones with the most votes in its favor. And I want to implore to all the voters out there that the National Alliance needs a chance to be able to do so on its own. We have always put together a slate of 23 that from that 23 we can get our parliamentarians, we can get our ministers, and if we must go to the private sector, it's a person that you can trust, a person of integrity. So this is an example, here is an example, Mr. George Pantophlet, who has represented St. Martin to the fullest, who has put forward motions in favor of St. Martin, putting St. Martin first, and also legislation, which I hope will see the light of day before we the election comes, and then barring any unforeseen circumstances, that we will get the opportunity to push it forward to the end upon return to office. So any final words before we go?
Well, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. And again, to the voters, come out and vote. Make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am Silveria Jacobs, and we've come to the end of another great informative edition of the National Alliance television program. Stay tuned every Monday from 9 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on St. Martin Cable TV for more information on our candidates, on our platform, on where we plan to go in putting St. Martin first. Come back again next week, and we will give you the information you deserve. I'm Silveria Jacobs. Good night.
Follow the white line down the road, to the polls, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go vote, girl.